A very good afternoon to all the panelists and the participants have joined. And with the Indian Medical Association Nagpur, in association with several other institutes, is actually has arranged this webinar, and which is a really interesting topic, because in this COVID big question, we are yet to find the exact remedy. So what are the treatment options that we have right now? That is what we are going to discuss today, especially with regard to the plasma, convalescent plasma therapy. To start with, I welcome the President of Indian Medical Association Nagpur, Dr. Mrs. Archana Kothari, to deliver her welcome address. Madam, please.
Thank you, Abhijit. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of Nagpur IMA, I welcome you all to this convalescent COVID plasma therapy webinar. As you know, that patients who have already recovered from COVID-19 contain antibodies against it in their plasma. And giving this convalescent plasma to hospitalized patients in time may help them to fight with the disease and will make them recover also. Today we have the experts in this field. They will guide you on this topic, and I'm sure all your queries will also be answered. We have a team of experts. We have Dr. Harish Varbe, Dr. Radha Munje, and Dr. Faisal. I welcome you all to this webinar. And today we are organizing this webinar jointly in association with Academy of Medical Sciences, Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine Nagpur, Vidarbha Chest Association, Association of Medical Faculties Nagpur, and Association of Physicians of India Vidarbha chapter. We have Secretary Dr. Dipti Chand Madam of API Society also. And I thank everyone for accepting our invitation and joining with us in this webinar. And I also thank Dr. Harish Varbe for he is doing free blood test for Corona RBD antibody for 100 persons, 100 healthcare workers. He is going to do it free. So thank you, Harish sir, for that. And I'm thankful to DigiShield also for providing this platform. So welcome to this wonderful webinar, and all our myths will be cleared at the end of this webinar about plasma therapy. Over to Abhijit.
Thank you very much, President ma'am. Now, before we actually start this interesting and not only subject wise, but we know that the people who are delivering, the faculties today are also very well known to us, and we are definitely going to get a good academic feast through this seminar. So before we start, I would just like to thank DigiShield, who have been technical support for holding this webinar. There are two persons of DigiShield who are helping us, Mr. Sanket Barale and Mr. Dipen Mehta. Dipen Mehta is COO DigiShield, carries a decade-long experience in operating and controlling critical business processes in the field of financial services, healthcare, pharmaceuticals. I request Dipen Mehta to please say a few words before we actually start our this webinar.
Thank you everyone. So we have developed an application which is a DigiShield. So currently in like COVID situation, you can see the doctor are doing teleconsultation through WhatsApp video call or through Skype or various other medium. So the DigiShield is built specifically for doctors, which is available free of cost. The doctors can do teleconsultation, video consultation. Even doctor can maintain their medical records as well. So it's free for the doctors, which is available in Google Play Store as well as iOS App Store. So it's very simple and easy to use. Would recommend doctors to download it and start using it. It's very easy to use. I will just share you a small video like how to use the application.
Download the DigiShield app from the Play Store or App Store now. New users will go through a quick one-time registration process. After filling in some basic information, registration is complete and you can start using DigiShield. Logging into DigiShield is easy, safe and secure. Enter your registered mobile number. An OTP is sent to your mobile. Enter the OTP and you are logged in. No passwords to forget. Making a patient's appointment is easy. Just click on the calendar sign, enter the patient's name and mobile number. Select date and time of the appointment and that's it. A confirmation message will be sent to the patient and so will a reminder. A day before the appointment, your patient will be automatically contacted by the DigiShield agent. The Shield agent will collect the patient's symptoms, history of present illness and more. The agent will also collect any consents or indemnity that you want to collect from them. Based on the DigiShield interaction, you will be alerted to the patient corona carrier risk. It's easy to do a phone or a video consultation with the patient. DigiShield recommends that patients that have been flagged with a high or moderate corona carrier risk should be consulted via consultation first. Click on the phone icon or the video icon to do a safe and secure teleconsultation with the patient. In order to issue an e-prescription to a patient, tap on the pencil icon, tap on the camera icon to take a photo of the prescription and you're all set. The prescription is sent securely to the patient immediately. DigiShield is easy to use and you will be online within 5 minutes of downloading the app. Download DigiShield on the Android Play Store or Apple App Store today. Protect yourself, your patients, your community. Download DigiShield for free today.
We'll share you the downloadable link in the chat board. So doctors can download it from the link directly and start using. If you have any issue, you can just contact us or you can also log in like www.digishield.me. Thank you.
Thank you,
Over to
Dipen.
Dr. Abhijit.
Yeah. Thank you, Dipen. So let us start immediately. The first lecture is to be delivered by Dr. Harish Varbe sir, who all of us know is a medical director of Lifeline Blood Bank. He is an expert committee member of State Blood Transfusion Council, Government of Maharashtra. He is also NABH Principal Assessor, Quality Control of India and Government of India. For the first lecture that he is going to deliver, which is immunodynamics, various test options and utility, I request Dr. Anil Jawahirani sir and Dr. Imran sir to be the chairpersons of this first session. I hand over to Dr. Harish Varbe sir.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Abhijit. At the outset, I must thank the IMA and Academy of Medical Sciences, Vidarbha Chess Association, Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine, Association of Medical Faculties, and Association API for taking up this very important topic of convalescent plasma for the discussion and inviting me to talk on this very important topic. Disclaimer is nil. Global pandemic of COVID-19 is caused by the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2, and the number of patients and deaths are rapidly increasing despite of all efforts from government, administration and people. And it seems we need to learn to live with corona for a long time to come. We are continuously learning with the multiple research studies. Knowledge is evolving continuously about its immunodynamics and disease course. There is continuous evolution of various trials, protocols, various drugs and therapies. Let us understand first the timeline of COVID-19. After the coronavirus exposure and infection, the majority of the people are asymptomatic and they don't suffer at all. Amongst the symptomatic group, there is an incubation period after the exposure till the symptom starts. Average is 5 days, range is 2 to 7 days, and maximum of 12 days. The majority of the symptomatic people are mild, having the symptoms of upper respiratory tract infection for 3 to 6 days and needs no hospitalization whatsoever. Moderate and severe grade of patients diseases require the hospitalization, and the moderate grade people have the signs symptoms of pneumonia, and the severe grade disease has the complications with the cytokine storm and multi-organ failure and coagulation failure. About the diagnosis of COVID-19, the WHO declared COVID as a worldwide pandemic in March 20. Many biotechnology companies, research institutes, and government bodies joined the hands in developing the diagnostic kits, therapies, and vaccines to curb the spread of virus and reopen the borders and recover the economies. Unlike typical viral infection, where the after entry there is some eclipse phase, then virus appears in the blood, then antigen, IgM antibodies, and IgG antibodies. In case of COVID, it is something, it has some atypical pattern or character. This is the JAMA release journal of American Medical Association on 9th June 20. Herein, virus enters the body, there is some incubation period, and after say around week time, in case of mild to moderate cases, the live virus gets cleared. And then, unlike other typical viral infection, IgM appears first and then in IgG. Here in COVID, IgG and IgM antibodies appears at the same time. This is very typical of this. And the live virus isolation can happen only during the preferably during the symptomatic period. And there are various diagnostic tests like RT-PCR, rapid antigen test, virus isolation, which is not practical, then antibody testing, which detects various antigens, and the antibody testing also, the rapid antibody test, then ELISA, chemiluminescence, microneutralization assay, and PRNT test. The lab diagnosis of COVID is practically in asymptomatic group and before the onset of the symptoms amongst the symptomatic group of patient. The detection of infection by laboratory is most unlikely. The first test comes the RT-PCR, which is the gold standard. It is direct evidence which detects the viral genomes. Comes positive on the first day of symptom. It is almost 100% specific. It is better with the bronchoalveolar lavage, and have around, we do face around 37% of the false negative reports, mainly because of the sampling errors and other technical errors. Usually, virus remains in our body for about 1 week after the symptom and can be detected by virus culture in the research lab. However, in some cases, viral RNA can be detected by the PCR for months together, which actually do not indicate the replicating live viruses. Hence, resuming the routine work and asking for the PCR negative reports from previously PCR positive symptomatic patient is not correct as of date. It is the latest publication yet to be published rather. It is a Harvard manuscript of dated 26th of the August, few days before, where the incubation period of the COVID is 5 days, average is 2 to 7 days, and maximum is 12 days. Viral culture is positive 2 to 3 days before the symptoms. It is peak during the symptoms and maximum up to 7 to 8 days after the symptoms, and maximum not beyond 9 days virus can be isolated and the patient is not infective after that. For the infectivities, post symptom 10 days is advisable for the mild to moderate illness, and 15 days for severe critical illness, maximum up to 20 days. And the PCR test remains positive for months together. The half-life of the antibodies is around 73 days, and the infection confers the short-term immunity. However, the durability of immunity is not yet clear till date. US CDC and WHO guidelines for the isolation for the infective patient is for asymptomatic 10 days from the first day of the PCR report. In case of mild to moderate, 10 days from the first day of symptom plus 3 days from the asymptomatic period without any medication. And in case of severe illness, it is 20 days post symptom. And in case of immunocompromised condition, whether it is mild, moderate, or severe, it is 20 days post symptoms. Coming to the actual diagnosis after PCR is the rapid antigen test. Here the sensitivity is again less with maybe around 30 to 40 to 50%. Get a lot of false positive, and the negative reports need to be confirmed by the positive by the PCR test in case of symptomatic case. Then after antigen, PCR and antigen comes the antibody response. There are various antigens of the virus to which the various antibodies are developed. This is the structure of virus. This is the section of it. These are the spikes, and these are the S1 protein, S2 protein, and RBD here. Various antigen proteins are the nucleocapsid. It is the most abundant protein, and the maximum antibodies are present against this protein. Then membrane protein is also there. Antibodies are developed against that. Envelope protein. Then spike protein. Spike protein is a large domain and having the several regions, domains, or antigenic determinants, out of which S2 is it facilitates the viral fusion and the entry of the virus into the cell. S1 protein, it is the large domain again having the other regions, out of which this RBD or receptor binding domain is very important. We have to remember that. It mediates the binding of virus to the cell receptors ACE2, angiotensin enzyme receptors. RBD is present on the spike 1 and mediates the binding of virus to the cell receptors ACE2. Angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptors are found on predominantly respiratory cells, also on GIT, muscle, heart, brain to some extent. And after the multiplication entry, there is a viral multiplication and the cell dies, and again the virus are released and infect the other cells. The cycle and repeats. The antibodies against this RBD receptor binding domain blocks the RBD portion of the virus and prevents the virus to bind to the receptors, ACE2 receptors, and there is no entry of the virus into the cell, and there is no multiplication, and virus cannot remain outside the cell live for a long time, and ultimately leads to viral clearance and the recovery with these protective antibodies. Multiple studies have shown that RBD is the key target for therapeutic antibodies, as it plays essential role in tropism, virus entry into the host cell, and includes the neutralizing antibodies and protective antibodies, immunity. Antibody response to various antibody developed both in symptomatic and asymptomatic group, IgG, IgM to some extent, IgA also. But the higher levels of IgG and IgM occurs in the second and third week of illness, and as early as fourth day also we can detect the antibodies from the symptom. IgM declines fast. IgM remains for few months. Unlike typical viral infection, near simultaneous production of IgG and IgM occurs in COVID. And not that antibodies may be higher in symptomatic cases, and in asymptomatic person, T helper cell immunity handles the virus and IgG levels do not rise much. Absence, the negative of these cells doesn't rule out the possibility of this infection also. Antibody response following the types of antibodies developed both in symptomatic and asymptomatic. The most abundant antibodies, neutralizing antibody. Uh, these are actual immunoprotective antibodies. They do clear the virus from the body. The gold standard to detect the neutralizing antibodies is PRNT, that is plaque reduction neutralizing test, which can be done only in the research lab, maybe 5 in India. The antibody response against viral proteins include the nucleocapsid protein and spike proteins. Nucleocapsid protein is being the most abundant. Majority of the antibodies are against nucleocapsid. The kits detecting nucleocapsid antibodies are sensitive and can detect the infection early. However, declines faster by the 4 weeks of the symptom. Hence, however, these antibodies are not protective antibodies and do not correlate with the neutralizing antibodies, protective antibodies. Spike antibodies, there are various parts of the spike, S1, S2. S2 spike facilitates for the viral fusion and entry. S1, it is a much larger domain. And the RBD actually binds to the ACE receptors, as I already told you. And it is highly immunogenic. It is very specific to this COVID virus compared to other beta coronaviruses. Anti-RBD virus antibody is the protective antibody, and in many vaccines are targeting this antigen of virus. And RBD antibodies can be quantified by the chemiluminescence or the ELISA also. And there are two options in ELISA test, antibody testing. Either you can do the total antibody, and IgG antibodies also specifically. And these are various tests available in the market, and which are detecting nucleocapsid S1, NC, spike, and nucleocapsid NC, S1, S2, and RBD. There are like Roche and Abbott kits. They target the nucleocapsid antibody. The Ortho kit targets the S1, but the Siemens is the kit which targets the RBD of the virus, and which is very important. Out of all this, about Roche, Diasorin, Ortho, Beckman, Siemens, ELISA, and Kavach, this is the only kit which is approved by the US FDA to detect the RBD, and which is quantitative for the quantitative estimation also. And the Public Health of England, with in collaboration with the Oxford University, has quantified, they assessed the various assays, and the Siemens is the only kit which is sensitive and specific. Rest are all specific only. And there is good correlation with the RBDs and not with the neutralizing antibodies of the protective antibodies. And various vaccines also, there is good correlation with the RBD antibodies. And it is the US, and by 15th August, so there are two kits, total antibodies, RBD antibodies, and IgG RBD antibodies. And this can come positive in the first week also to the around 60%, second week around 98 to 93%, and 14 days after the symptoms, it is 100% positive. And the utility is, it can aid in diagnosis in complement to RT-PCR. When the PCR test is negative, then this can confirm in later phase. It can help in seroprevalence. It can evaluate the vaccine efficacy also. It is very important for the convalescent plasma therapy and also the reopening of the society. Lifeline experience about this test is, we started the RBD plasma bank for the COVID. It is just not the routine plasma. Till now, the convalescent plasma was being given blindly without knowing whether the antibody is present and how much antibody is present. Antibody might be present with the rapid test; those are not very quantitative, but then it was not quantified till yet. And I get around 20 to 25 calls per day. But can supply only 3 to 4. And when we screen the donors, only 3 to 4 donors are pass this criteria for the antibody titer more than 6 to 50 out of 10. When we tested around all staff of around Lifeline, around 27% of them are found positive. And staff posting is changed accordingly according to their positivity. Safety is safely they are posted on the frontline duties like reception, sample collection, and home visits. There are many inquiries from the hospitals for the total staff screen. Yet till now, 4 hospitals have confirmed with so many staff. But then presently we are facing some kit supply issue. Within day or two, it will be resolved. And for the reopening of the society and for general public use, many individuals and families are getting screened for these RBD antibodies. Thank you very much. This is my experience about the a diagnostic part of the COVID. Over to coordinator. Over to chairpersons.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for a very, very informative talk. We have been hearing about various tests, but we really did not know how these tests are actually meaningful. So we could actually know the details and we could know the meaning of each test. So thank you very much. Yeah. Varbe sir is again going to come back for another small talk that we'll discuss later. Just one thing I wanted to tell all participants right now. We are also on Facebook Live. Just you can tap on the chat box and there you can get the link to the Facebook. And you can join through Facebook also, or you can request your friends to join through Facebook. So the next topic is by Dr. Radha Munje, madam. She is going to deliver her talk on rational use of CCP. Now, there have been various treatment methods that have been by different countries and different physicians. They have said that they have tried this thing, they have tried that thing. I read somewhere that even high dose vitamin C, vitamin D have also been tried. Such papers are also there available. Now, definitely when we don't have a definitive treatment and also a vaccine here, we need to look very, with an interest towards what is called as a convalescent plasma. Now, when we say, everybody knows that convalescent plasma is being tried, but how it is tried, at what stage? I request Dr. Radha Munje as a professor and head pulmonary medicine, IGGMC Nagpur. She has got almost 30 years of experience. Her professional area of interest are asthma, allergy, teaching, research, COPD, then MDR-TB. She is PG guide for DTCD, MD chest. I request Dr. Sanjay Jain sir and Dr. Timane sir to be chairpersons for this particular topic.
So with the prelude which Dr. Varbe has given, we come to this topic of what is the right clinical stage for use of COVID convalescent plasma. At the outset, I thank IMA to have taken an initiative in a topic on which at least I have not either attended or delivered a talk on in any webinar. We have seen n number of webinars which have been talking about what is to be treated, or when the COVID disease has to be treated, in which way, and so on, and whether now people are even talking about post-COVID morbidity which the patients have, but I have never even addressed it. I would try to make justice to the topic given to me. Thank you, organizers. And sometimes even I wonder which is the right clinical stage to use the convalescent plasma, and whatever literature I could gather, I would be putting forth. This is how Dr. Varbe has looked at the coronavirus with so many thorns, which looks like a crown on the head of the virus. But that at the top, you can see how the virus is looking at us, and the menace of this pandemic is increasing. And with no drug visible, no vaccine as of now we really have a need to look at whatever is available, and we can really repurpose the available drugs. Everybody looks at the COVID treatment with a lot of hope, and everybody expects a miracle would be there, whether it be in the form of meditation or a vaccine or so many messages and the literature that keeps on circulating on the Google University as well as the WhatsApp classes. But all of us as clinicians, as doctors, whether you are directly involved with treating the patient or not, or even advising them telephonically or consoling so many of your friends and relatives, we all know that as of now, we really do not have a drug which is effective against this COVID disease or a coronavirus. So, plasma is one such entity. So, is plasma a drug? That is a question which comes to our mind. Is plasma miraculous? Because when we look at all the requests that we are getting, I somehow feel that people have gone out with a notion that plasma is a miracle. Will plasma save life? We really do not know. And will plasma be replaced by a vaccine? Definitely, because once a vaccine comes, probably plasma might phase out. But we are not sure about even the vaccine because the virus is mutating very fast. The convalescent plasma has already been used in various diseases whenever there was no vaccine available. But as soon as vaccine came, effective vaccine came, it's no more used. It was also used in Ebola, and various studies have said that it has not been useful. But I went into the literature and I found that the right timing of Ebola when the convalescent plasma was given within 14 days of onset of the disease, it has definitely had better outcomes. So it emphasizes that timing of using convalescent plasma is very important, and let's see whether we can answer that question. This is the chart, and two of them have already been shown by Dr. Varbe sir. And let us revisit and see what we are looking at is the first few days a patient would be asymptomatic and is probably the incubation period. Then comes the stage of mild disease, and then comes the post-immune responses which comes in, and patient may develop various complications, advanced disease, as well as CR disease. And what are the hallmarks of this pro-inflammatory phase? Um, Please mute yourself, Dr. Abhijit. And
Yeah.
the hallmarks are tachypnea, hypoxemia, dyspnea. And probably this is the point when we should be actually looking at the patient, and even a few days prior. If your monitoring is good, you are observing the patient well, probably this is the time when an intervention like plasma can be done. So this chart lets you know which is the time when you should be critically observing your patient and evaluating whether some type of intervention is needed in giving the treatment. This chart has already been shown, and I'm not going to talk on it. So why plasma? Plasma is a classic example of adaptive immunotherapy being given to the patient. And this plasma contains antibodies from the recovered patient. And as Dr. Varde says that it can be to the tune of 100% immunity after 24 days or 1 month or so. And this plasma may help people to recover from COVID, may lessen the severity of disease, shorten the length of the disease, and decrease or prevent the mortality. So we do need, whatever I have read in the earlier slide, what we need from the plasma is decrease of symptoms, decrease of mortality, and clearance of lung lesion. And when about clearance of lung lesion, which I have not observed in the literature which I have seen. Why? Because we are seeing more and more cases of people having lung sequelae. And if there is rapid clearance of lung lesion, perhaps we may be able to prevent morbidity also, which nobody has looked into when used convalescent plasma. So how did this plasma come? And there have been various trials, and I would be visiting only one or two just to let you know. Internet. This was the first study where only 5 cases were reported in the literature, and this was just like a case series. And here they have observed that when all these 5 critically ill patients were given plasma, RDS also, and all the 5 of them were benefited, and a potential effect of plasma has been documented after this study. Then there were studies where early safety indicators of convalescent plasma were seen, and 5,000 patients were studied. And here they observed that plasma therapy was quite safe. However, they have underlined that there are going to be serious adverse events which include a risk of mortality, transfusion related reactions which may occur, which may be acute allergy, lung injury, or severe allergic phenomenon or associated circulatory overload. Now, there has been another study which has come recently and published mid-August somewhere. This is the effect of convalescent plasma on mortality among the hospitalized patients. And this was a study done in more than 33,000 of patients. And the sole outcome which they monitored or looked at was mortality. So naturally, this appears to be a very strong study. And let us see what they found. They found that the 7-day mortality rate was reduced in patients transfused within 3 days of COVID diagnosis compared with patients who were given it in the later phase of disease. Similar trends they have observed even at the end of 30 days. So they looked at the mortality at end of the 7 days as well as at the 30 days. And they found that, and apart from that, they also analyzed what were the antibody titers in the convalescent plasma used, and they found that whenever the antibody levels were high, they found that the mortality was definitely reduced, be it at the end of 7 days or be it at the end of 30 days. So overall cohort was also very interesting, and they had a diverse representation of all ages, all gender, weight, race, ethnicity, and so on. There are a few slides which shows the results of this study, which I'm not going to read into, but it clearly shows the beneficial effect of plasma if it is used at the right time, that is in the early phase of the disease. And the relationship between mortality and time of plasma transfusion is important, as well as the antibody level have provided that this is significant and it is consistent with the better efficacy and outcome with the convalescent plasma treatment in a hospitalized patients. There has still been a lot of skepticism, and we have seen in these 2-3 studies that plasma definitely helps. But when and how does it help, that needs to be looked into. So this is a chart which shows how the viral load and the viral response falls down, and that is the time when there is a overimposition of post-inflammatory response phase. And as soon as the host inflammatory response comes into action, that is a moderate phase or a pulmonary phase of COVID, and that is the right time where you need to give some intervention, be it drugs like remdesivir or a convalescent plasma. This is the phase where patients would present with shortness of breath, hypoxia, chest x-rays would show you involvement, CT may show a higher CORAD rating, and even few of the markers would start rising at this time. So there has to be a perfect balance between the selection of the time and selection of cases which have to be given the convalescent plasma. So if you decide to give plasma in a very late phase, perhaps the advantages of giving plasma may be overruled by the complications of the stage in which the patient is. So a perfect balance of between the time and the selection of cases where the plasma, whether it is really indicated or not, that has to be looked into. And then if you give plasma, perhaps you may have a better outcome, which is the sole objective of any physician, the patient, the relatives who run about to get a plasma. When we look at the recent guidelines, you would realize that the phase of moderate COVID disease, where we give antivirals like remdesivir, as well as we add steroids and anticoagulants, this is the right time when a convalescent plasma therapy has to be given in a proper dose. And the dose, if you calculate total, would be 200 ml single dose given IV slowly. This is the moderate phase where patients have pneumonia with no signs of severe disease. SpO2 is 90 to 94, either at room air or even with supplementation should not be lower than 93, I'm sorry. And respiratory rate somewhere between 24 to 30 per minute would be the ideal and the right time. To the left, you can see that there are various criteria of mild disease, and to the right, you can see of this that there are severe parameters of whether of the severe or the critical cases. And here the guidelines do not advocate use of convalescent plasma in severe cases. But what is the truth? Let us go ahead. ICMR guidelines say that the criteria of giving convalescent plasma is patient who must be hospitalized. Second is confirmed cases of COVID disease by RT-PCR. Third is the age more than 18 years, and any of the two clinical criteria where PaO2 and versus FiO2 is less than 300, respiratory rate more than 24, and SpO2 less than 93 on room air. However, our state has expanded this criteria, and this expanded criteria as will be as of now would be in a study mode or a trial mode on which Dr. Faisal would be speaking. But I'm glad that these criteria have been widened a bit, and where we can include few patients who have comorbidities like diabetes, obstructive airway disease, or even renal disease. However, the eGFR should be more than 60, and these patients can be considered. When I say can be given, does not mean every patient will be given. These are the cases where we can study, and a team of expert doctors should sit together. It's not a single person's decision. Experts should sit together, look at the pros and cons, weigh the outcome, and if you feel that the outcome is going to be favorable for that patient, then only you go ahead with giving the convalescent plasma. Now, who are the people in whom the convalescent plasma should not be given? Pregnant women, breastfeeding women, known hypersensitivity to blood products, recipient of pooled immunoglobulins in last 30 days for obvious reasons. See, if somebody has hypersensitivity or have already received immunoglobulin, these are the people who are likely to have more and more adverse reactions after giving the plasma. Then critically ill patients, patients who are already taking some other drugs in trial should not be there, because these drugs are going to vitiate the findings of your treatment outcome after giving plasma. And patients who are already in septic shock, who have persistent hypotension despite volume resuscitation, patients who have coagulopathies, patients who have severe liver disease, and patients who have moderate to severe renal impairment should definitely be not given plasma. And this is also equally important for all of us to understand. All of you who are listening to this webinar are looking at plasma as a wonder product, but we should also know when it is not to be used, because so many efforts are needed to collect the plasma, to hand over the plasma, and also to supervise when it is given to the patients. So task force recommendations which have come recently, that is on the 13th of August, are currently in the stage 2B, that is moderate disease. You can give convalescent plasma where there is pneumonia with early respiratory failure, respiratory rate more than 24, SpO2 90 to 94 on room air or even with supplementation, age more than 18. X-ray showing pneumonia is a very important criteria. Moderate disease of the patients who are either not improving with oxygen or who have a very rapid increase in the need of oxygen in spite of optimum use of steroid. We are all well aware that as of now we are advocating steroids in the moderate phase of disease, but these patients who are on optimum dose of steroids, and in spite of that, if the oxygen requirement is progressively, and I should even add the words rapidly increasing, these are the patients, and this is the right time when you should intervene and start thinking of giving plasma. As well as if when you look at the lung infiltrates, and if your facilities allows doing a follow-up CT or a repeat chest X-ray is done, and where you see that the lung involvement is rapidly, the lungs are deteriorating and the involvement is increasing 50% in last 24 to 48 hours, this is the right time when you should advise convalescent plasma and use it judiciously. These are the guidelines which have recently come up and the Kerala guidelines for using convalescent plasma. And here they have said that even the life-threatening COVID infection with respiratory failure and septic shock can also be tried with convalescent plasma. So that is one expanded criteria we can say that it's there. So this is how we go about. You screen the patient and you feel that patient needs plasma. You have to get approval from the institutional board or the state board or the district forum. And then after an informed consent from the patient, relative, when it is prescribed from the panel of experts who have agreed to give, then only the plasma should be given. It should be given IV slowly over the 2 hours and should not be given very rapidly. Before giving all the criteria of blood bank, which probably Dr. Varve would be speaking on, and I would not be stepping on his topic, but ABO compatibility and cross matching has to be done. Transfusion related adverse events are well known as they are known with the blood or other blood components, and these are the transfusion related acute lung injury, transfusion associated circulatory overload or anaphylactic reaction. Even in spite of good screening, there is a risk of transfusion related transmission of infections, febrile non-hemolytic reactions, hemolytic reactions, and rarely RBC allogenization. Remember that even if we are looking at plasma as a wonder drug, these ADRs can prove fatal because the lungs are already compromised, patient is already ill with a flared up immune response to the COVID infection. So close monitoring not only in the immediate post-transfusion state as well as in the late stage of over 24 to 48 hours is a must. And all ADRs, whether they are early, whether they are late, whether they are small or whether they are serious, must be reported and a record is kept. Why this is to be done, I'm not talking from the patient only or a medical legal point of view, but your record of all these things is going to help somebody else who is going to try plasma from your experience. And this is in short about management, but I'm not going to step on this. So we are still at the crossroads of when to use plasma. And if you choose judiciously the right time and right candidate in whom the plasma is to be given, perhaps the miracle for which you are waiting, I won't say a miracle would happen, but at least you would find some solace and many of your patients will be benefited by this therapy. And even if all of us are aware that we have to have a new normal, let us hope that someday you may be able to smell a rose as a rose is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. So the take-home message is probably in moderately ill patients and a judicious thinking by the physician. That will only. I think we should move to the next lecture, which is again by Dr. Harish Varve sir. It's about rational use of convalescent COVID plasma.
The donor criteria are being specified as a age should be more than 18 years. The weight of the donor should be more than 50 kg. We take the CCP from the male preferably because of the atypical antibodies which are present usually in female. But from nulliparous females we can take, and also if there is from male also if there is no history of blood transfusion. Donation interval every 15 days up to 4 months we can take it, and as per US FDA they can take the they are allowing to collect plasma every 7 days till the antibody titer is there proper. The protein should be more than 6 gram per DL, and the RBD antibody titer, which is very important, should be more than equal to or more than 1:640. Symptoms wise, there should be, as per Indian guidelines, there should be 28 days of asymptomatic post discharge or home quarantine, or 14 days of asymptomatic period with one PCR negative report. Asymptomatic with PCR positive or mild asymptomatic. If it is mild asymptomatic, then there are antibodies are of lower titer. And if the person is having the fever more than 3 days with more than 38.5 degree temperature, Celsius temperature, they are expected to have the higher titer of the antibodies. About the donor criteria, the blood group and RH type compatibility is required. Only ABO compatibility is required, and RHD blood group can be ignored provided there is no antibodies present in the donor. If the donor is negative and they are having the antibodies, then that should be avoided. And the RH negative patient can safely receive the CCP from the RH positive donor. These are the if the patient is A, can receive the plasma from the donor of A and AB group. If patient B, can receive from B and AB donor. AB can receive from AB only, and the O patient can receive the plasma from any donor. Here the O is recipient, unlike the red cells where it is the universal donor. It is not like that here. Reverse is right here. And RH positive can receive from both positive and negative can also receive plasma from positive and negative. About the titer, various authorities recommend the titer of antibodies, RBD antibodies or neutralizing antibodies at various times. US FDA recommends 1:160 or 180. Then US CCP, the RBD titer of 1:320. Then Mayo Clinic recommends 1:640. Then CDSCO Indian guidelines recommends neutralizing titer of 1:40 or 1:1024, and Ministry of Health protocol says it should be more than 640, and FDA, Government of India, again gives the neutralizing titer of guideline of 1:80. These are the summary of all the guidelines. And there is correlation between the neutralizing and IgG antibodies. We need not go into that. The patient eligibility, madam has already cleared very much. The CCP may be considered in the patients with the moderate degree who are not responding and oxygen requirement is progressively increasing despite the use of steroids. But then US FDA guidelines on the 22nd August says patient eligibility, there should be laboratory confirmation, informed consent, and the severe and moderate life-threatening patients also this can be given. The patient criteria, special requisite, APO compatibility, cross-match and titer. Then the regimen should be closely monitored for the several hours post-transfusion for any adverse reaction, and should be avoided with the patients with the IgA deficiency and immunoglobulin allergy. Therapeutic dose is 3 to 13 ml per kg body weight, and the dose should be one dose of 200 ml should be given over 2 hours, and 2 or more doses of 200 to 300 ml should be given at the interval of 12 to 24 hours. And the transfusion rate should be initially 10 ml for 15 minutes, and then it can be increased 100 ml per hour. And adjust the infusion rate if that with respect to transfusion associated cardiac overload and the patient tolerance. And pre-medication should not be given to such patients like steroids, or especially if the patient is on that, then there is no problem. What is the rationale of using CCP? In the natural way, viral clearance is there. It is a passive way. It is highly specific targeted viral clearance conditions. The antibody is specific and it should be in the high titer. Till now, what is happening with the CCP was, it was given the blind convalescent plasma therapy without knowing what is the antibody present and what is the titer present. Post facto it was supposed to be tested, but because the facility of the testing antibody titer was not available, that too particularly RBD, which is protective antibody, or immunoprotective antibodies. What is the mechanism, how it works? It has the antiviral effects, neutralizing antibodies are there. Antibodies inhibit the virus entry into the cell, limit the multiplication by viral binding to RBT, and retain the infection. There is a protective antibodies, IgG, IgM are there in the blood. Immunomodulatory effects are there, anti-inflammatory cytokines are there. Antibodies block the inflammatory cytokines, complements and autoantibodies, and provides the passive immunity and the immediate protection to the patient suffering from the disease. The side benefits of the CCP are also there. Patient with the hormonal immune deficiencies can benefit from the polyclonal antibodies contained in the CCP. Patients with the hemorrhagic diathesis can benefit from the clotting factors also. And the plasma also contains the antibodies to other common beta coronaviruses associated with the common cold. The conclusion, the CCP should be considered amongst the first responders during the pandemic. Multicentric RCTs should be encouraged in order to establish the efficacy with respect to schedule, dosing like timing and doses. It is a very safe with the minimal risk. FFP as a CCP, what it is? It is the fresh frozen plasma only we are using left and right till now. And till in the experience of my career in this field since last 20 years, I found FFP is the safest component of all, red cell plasma and platelet. Having the risk of like allergic, which can be tackled with the Avil or steroid, cardiac overload can be tackled with this Lasix, febrile reactions can be tackled with the paracetamol, TTI, infections of risk of TTI is also there, where the IDNAT tested blood can take care of. TRALI, it is the infection, but then when we collect the blood from the male with no history of blood transfusion, the chances of TRALI are also less in this. ADE, antibody dependent enhancement can also occur. Particularly if we give the RBD antibody tested blood, then this chance is also taken care of. Hemolytic transfusion reaction, this is also very minimal with an anaphylaxis. Yes, with IgA deficiency patient with the antibodies, this cannot be given, will lead to anaphylactic shock. But this is very rare. As I already told you, these are the concerns. TTI, TRALI may be life-threatening in the patients who are already suffering from acute lung injury, and antibody-dependent enhancement. I already told you, if we give the specific RBD antibodies, this chance is also very less. There are risks to all the blood transfusions, out of which the plasma is the safest, as even the all the reports says like that, and this can be taken care of by giving the IDNAT tested blood. Contraindications: allergy, the IgA deficiency, treatment with the immunoglobulins in last 30 days because of the risk of developing serum sickness, and the routine contraindications like in other trials, concurrent viral or bacterial infection, thrombosis, poor compliance or short life expectancy, or pregnancy or breastfeeding. These are the routine contraindications. And RCTs from China, they are giving the dose should be 9 to 13 ml per kg body weight. Titer should be more than this, and the negative PCR, it comes in 72 hours at 87%, and 28 days clinical improvement was very statistically different in severe patient, but not in life-threatening cases. Mayo Clinic, which is the largest trial, which is published very recently on the 12th of August, which contains very serious patients also. And also it concludes that the relationship between the reduced mortality when it is given in early time and with the higher antibody levels, which provides a signature of efficacy in the convalescent plasma. Clinical microbiology review article of American Society of America, which is very recent, on 29th of August, it says if the aliquots of 200 to 300 CCP is given, with the good titer, viral load drops to near zero. In majority of the countries, the suitable donor could donate 600 ml of plasma equivalent to 3 doses every 14 days for minimum 6 months. Up to 7 months donations, antibody titer do not decrease. And antibody titer is mildly symptomatic in patients such as the low titer. In JAMA, there is a definite recovery, better recovery with the patients in the compared to control patients. And at the end, I would rather say, मेरे पास क्या है, आइवरमेक्टिन है, रेमडेसिविर है, टोसिलिजुमैब है, और तुम्हारे पास क्या है? मेरे पास प्लाज्मा है. So with this on a lighter note, I end my talk on this rational use of convalescent plasma. I appeal and request all of the listeners to help us to get the proper donors, the list of donors who are recovered, having the little serious kind of COVID course, so that we can select the right donor with the high antibody titer and really benefit, which will benefit the patients, because out of 10 we are able to get the right titer only in like 3 to 4 donors. So we need more donors to screen to get the right donor for the as a CCP donor. Over to Chairperson Coordinator Abhijit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The concluding remark I really liked, although it was on a lighter note. Still, may I request the chairperson to have their comment? Okay, let us move ahead. We have the last of the lectures today. That is by Dr. Faisal. He is head of the department and professor of orthopedics at GMCH. He is nodal officer for Platina trial, and he's going to tell us about what is the Platina trial and what is the plasma bank. Can we create a plasma bank and how useful it will be? So over to you, Dr. Faisal, sir. Before that, just a small request. I request Dr. Preeti Chand, madam, and Dr. Sanjay Deottore, sir, to chair the session.
Okay, thank you, sir. At the outset, I would like to thank IMA and rest of the organizations for giving me a chance and having to go through the horror of listening to an orthopedic surgeon talking about a physician's topic. Thank you very much, sir. But last 3 months has taught us everything about being a primary care physician and a physician per se. Rather than specialities, we have mixed us, and all thanks to my teachers in GMC and IGMC, I have been converted from a professor and head of orthopedics into a physician. So let me start Project Platina and its aims in COVID pandemic. Why plasma? It is the largest component, first introduced in the 19th century by Emil von Behring, for which he actually won the Nobel Prize in 1901 for treatment of diphtheria. Spanish flu fatalities actually decreased in the second half of the pandemic. If you go through the history of Spanish flu, the fatalities were actually decreased in the second half of the pandemic because of use of convalescent plasma, because there were no antibiotics at that time. There was no other antivirals or anything. It was also used successfully in meningitis, measles, SARS, MERS, and even as early as in 2020 for COVID pandemic in China. And now a very big study is coming up from the Mayo Clinic. So it's a time-tested product which can be used. So the question is only about when to use it and how to use it. Since this is a new disease, do we have a definitive therapy? No. So we have to depend upon some time-tested therapies like plasma. Why convalescent plasma in COVID-19? Currently no approved, so even remdesivir and favipiravir are not approved drugs. They are on emergency use authorizations only all over the world. They are not for open label use. Drugs like remdesivir are under evaluation. Corticosteroid therapy, although coming up big time, it has its own problems in high doses. An effective vaccine is not yet available in the market. So whenever a pandemic pans, an epidemic pans out, these are the standard steps in epidemic goes. Initially, you have to identify the pathogen. The initial infections come up, which happened somewhere around December 2019. We were confused what viral pneumonia is coming up in China. Then we identified the pathogen in January. Then there is exponential growth all around the world, started with Italy, then America, then now in India. Then there is growing pool of patients which are recovered. Although there are many deaths, but these are growing pool of patients with recovered patients. Then gradually we step on to develop an effective vaccine. And once the vaccine comes in, we shift on to the prevention. But here right now, the most important step right now we are going through is this, wherein we have an exponential growth, but we don't have a vaccine. So for passive immunity, plasma becomes the most important tool in our hands. COVID-19 plasma, in patients, there are two phases. Whatever I have understood is there is a phase 1 of virological phase, and there is a phase 2 called as immunological phase. In phase 1, all antivirals, all antibodies will work. But in phase 2, wherein there is a cytokine storm, wherein the body has reacted to immensely to the virus, then they will all these antivirals and plasma will not be effective. This is the phase wherein the patient deteriorates, and only the anti-IL-6 might work in that phase. What is the comparison between convalescent plasma and vaccine? Theoretically, vaccine is an active immunity. Convalescent plasma is a passive immunity. But however, vaccine is the ideal candidate, but it takes a lot of time to develop. Testing is an issue, and there are a lot of changing strains. And as sir has said, there are a lot of antibodies, a lot of areas wherein vaccine can be developed, like SRBD, spike protein, nucleocapsid protein, or whatever. In passive immunity, it binds directly to the virus and neutralizes it. There is immediate protection affected. However, there are problems of convalescent plasma itself. Now we come to Project Platina. What is Project Platina? Project Platina is Medical Education and Drugs Department's first ever research cum treatment project. Why Nagpur? It was originally, the whole idea was conceptualized and executed in Nagpur. The whole idea came from these four guys. Dr. Sanjay Mukherjee, who is an alumni from Government Medical College, Nagpur, Dr. Sajal Mitra, Dean GMC Nagpur, myself, and Dr. Sushant Meshram. We all were very hopeful that in this pandemic, we had an idea that how Lombardy went, how New York went, we would also have to face the same problem. So we we kept on talking to each other, and hence we came out with a plan that we have to undergo some trial or some method of convalescent plasma. We tried to join the ICMR trial, but then it was a very small trial and did not allow many centers to use. However, we had to use it for many patients in Maharashtra. So we devised this plan called as Platina. What is the plan of action? The plan of action is simple. You have a plasma donor who is a recovered COVID-19 patient, and you transfer it to an active COVID-19 patient. These are the timelines. We started Platina somewhere in March. We started planning somewhere in April. And then we identify a donor. You do the donation and collection. Then you do separation, transportation, identify the patient, transfuse it, and you hope that it can cures the patient. There are logistical issues, preparation and collection of donor plasma, training of manpower to collect, and upscaling of all the machines. I'm very happy to inform you that we have developed 21 plasma banks throughout Maharashtra. What is the agenda? 21 medical colleges across Maharashtra, including all government medical colleges, will have these plasma banks. And I'm glad that they have started using these machines right now, and all 21 have started collecting plasma. 21 plasmapheresis centers, 21 of all government hospitals inside Maharashtra. 400 ml of plasma is collected from each donor, and the target of this Project Platina is that we want to collect plasma from 5,000 patients. There are two sides to it. One is the trial part and one is the off-label part. In the trial part, we have a lot of restrictions as to whom to give, how to give. We have limited number of patients. We are using it only in selected centers. Like we are using it in only 21 medical colleges and only in severe COVID-19 patients. So what happens to patients who are not in the trial, who are not fitting into the criteria? So we planned the project itself in a way that people who don't fit into the trial can be given plasma in an off-label. So trial is for severe COVID-19 patients and only in selected centers, and off-label use is moderately severe COVID-19 patient, and it can be given in government recognized COVID-19 hospital. So what is Platina trial? Platina trial is plasma therapy in novel coronavirus assessment. The trial is to be conducted in 21 centers, one of the largest trials in the world in severe COVID-19 patients. There are other trials which were conducted, which were larger than this, but they were all conducted in moderate COVID-19 patients. Dr. Sushant Meshram, professor and head of pulmonology, and GMC team is heading the trial in entire Maharashtra. So we are the lead center. 472 severe COVID-19 patients will be enrolled in this trial. Many patients have already been done across the state. Results will be out in the next 4 months, and it will actually give you a direction of our understanding of role of plasma in severe COVID-19 patients. Off-label use. By definition, off-label means, although it has not been approved by DCGI as a therapy across the counter, but it can be used as an emergency use authorization. And hence, the day our project was launched, in the evening, we have come out with a GR which says that how off-label plasma can be used all across the state of Maharashtra. So the ideal situation where off-label can be used is somewhere there, between moderate who are about to go into severe. So this is the place. There is no role of plasma in mild. There is no role of plasma in very severe patients. Now, what is the recipient criteria? All speakers have already touched upon this. The patient must be 18 years of age or older, lab confirmed COVID-19 when they were ill, and when they are ill, moderate patients whose oxygen requirement is increasing in spite of standard of care, antivirals and steroid therapy. This is the standard guideline given by Government of India and Government of Maharashtra. Moderate disease means respiratory rate between 24 to 30, SpO2 between 85 to 93, and PO2 FiO2 ratio between 100 to 300. Contraindications for off-label use. These are very important because what is happening is every day morning in front of Dean office, we get around 10 donors, 10 recipients who come up with a form that we want plasma for a patient who's already on ventilator. So contraindications for off-label use is severe COVID-19 patients will not be helped by convalescent plasma. Patients on mechanical ventilators with the ratio less than 100 will not be helped. Severe ARDS with wide lung of no use, septicemia and multi-organ failure, convalescent plasma does not help, and hence we are not going to issue to any patient with all these conditions. The donors criteria can only be taken from a recovered COVID-19 patients 28 days after the last symptoms or 2 weeks after a negative report, although the negative report as per ICMR is not mandatory now. So we go for 28 days last symptom. Standard selection criteria for whole blood or plasma donation according to local standard guidelines like age and weight has to be taken into consideration. Female donors should never have been pregnant because of HLA antibodies, so there has to be nulliparous. Quantity is between 200 to 500 ml depending upon a lot of factors like machine, the blood pressure of the patient, or these, and can donate every 28 days. As per our guidelines, a donor can donate only after another 28 days. And of course, it should be antibody positive. What are the adverse effects? Generally very safe. You have heard about TRALI, TACO, transfusion related disease spread, and citrate reaction is common with plasma effects. So this is a very important slide for all the people in private hospitals. We have devised a policy and SOP for private hospitals, how they can apply for plasma, which is present in GMC or IGMC or any of the 21 centers. You have to have a request form on your own letterhead with signatures of 2 physicians describing the condition of the patient, along with all the details, scanned copies of blood investigation, CT scan reports and everything to prove that the patient is moderate grade and not in severe variety. You send this email to us, Dean. I will share with all the detailed emails. These emails and relevant details will then go to the task force. We have appointed one single person, member of the district task force, who will then decide whether the application has been accepted or rejected. If it is rejected, of course, the patient cannot get plasma because he will not, this is a scarce resource and this is not going to help that patient. Hence, we reject it outright and very clearly in clear words. If it is accepted, it again goes to another screening committee, which is the GMC or IGMC export approval wherever the plasma is available. If there is no requirement at GMC for the trial or for off-label use, it goes to the GMC Dean and then it goes to the blood bank which issues it. This apparently appears to be a very long process, but it happens within 3 to 4 hours. We have done it multiple times in last 8 days, and it is all electronic. You send a mail, the mail goes straight away to task force member. The task force members accepts or rejects it, and I'm thankful to him. He is very fast. He answers within 1 hour. It goes to the GMC expert panel, who are available round the clock for approval. It goes, if nothing is required for the trial, it goes to GMC Dean, who in fact signs post facto also. He gives emergency authorization for issuing of plasma, and the blood bank is 24/7 active. So Project Platina, what are the challenges now? The biggest challenge in Project Platina is donors' willingness. Everybody would agree with me that the donor in India, they are not really willing to donate. Then how to trace them, how to counsel them is a big issue, because we are too much involved in, as medicos, we are too much involved in the treatment of the severe and moderate patients. You have to have antibody testing wherein the titers have to be known. There are only recent changes which are coming up, but initially we had no antibody kits, we had no antibody titers. And then infrastructure, upgradation of infrastructure for plasma collection. But we have to convert this challenge into opportunity. We already have a line list of all donors across Maharashtra, around 1 lakh donors line listing. We have state-of-the-art collection center facility now throughout Maharashtra with 21 centers available. And we have a team of these machine people who will provide training to all those plasma handlers. We have issued protocols for transport of plasma from anywhere in Maharashtra to Nagpur, or from Nagpur to anywhere. And hence we also have to create awareness now. So the future vision of Project Platina, the Platina project was created not only with a single line vision of COVID treatment, but we have to create 21 apheresis banks in the entire state of Maharashtra. The whole idea was to start MD in transfusion medicine in all these medical colleges, to provide blood products and apheresis facilities to poor patients like dengue and GBS. We all know what happens to single donor plasma in rainy season, where the cost of plasma is exorbitantly high. Then to provide single donor plasma free of cost to poor patients in entire Maharashtra during all these dengue seasons, and to develop a transfusion medicine and blood bank blood product network throughout Maharashtra. In terms of future vision in research, the Platina project is collaborating with research organizations like NIV in Pune and Haffkine Institute in Mumbai. We are already in the process of studying and isolating monoclonal antibodies from plasma, and we will try to make artificial monoclonals for direct passive immunization of COVID patients in the future. So we want, sooner than later, we want a corona-free Maharashtra. Thank you so much. Over to Chan madam.
Yeah, Dr. Faisal, very nice presentation. Explained the whole Platina project very nicely to all our audiences. Very much impressed by the way these people have been working in the institute. Can you tell me how many patients have received plasma in our institute since we have started?
Ma'am, since we have started, we have had 36 plasma which we have collected, of which 32 have already been transfused. And of this, I'm happy to inform that more than half of them were transfused to private hospitals. And of that, almost half of them were relatives of medicals.
What about the institute? What is the outcome of the patients who have received in this?
See, what we have understood is that it is definitely effective if given at the right time. If given in the moderate phase, if given in the phase wherein the patient's oxygen requirement is increasing, where the patient is shifting to NIV, not working, I think it definitely works. In severe variety, I would not like to comment because we are undergoing a very big trial. Even the ICMR is in touch with us, communicating with us repeatedly and asking us about the outcome and what are the steps we are taking for the trial. So in trial, the results would be out in 4 months, but in off-label, it definitely helps it if given in the right time. But we are more challenged by the supply side. The demand side, we have absolutely clarified. The SOPs are very clear, whom to give, whom not to give. But the demand side, we have to, the supply side, we have to take care. And I urge all the members of IMA and all the organizations and all the social organizations to come forward and motivate people to donate plasma as much as possible. Right now, I am happy to inform you that I have 900 plasmas throughout Maharashtra, 900 bags of plasma throughout Maharashtra. And we have already transfused around 275 bags throughout Maharashtra in last 1.5 months.
Wonderful. So very impressive. But I would like to say that we have to make a decision to give plasma exactly at the right time. The time should not get lost. We should give it right in the time. We have a personal experiences of patients receiving along with the antiviral drugs in the moderate phase going on to the 5th day, the 6th day. And then these are the patients who recover so well. So my message to you all is that decide quickly to give the plasma, and also for the plasma donation. Every day I have 10 forms in front of Dr. Faisal that please give me off-label plasma, but eventually some of them get it, most of them do not, because the groups are not available. So appeal was to him to get the plasma from states, from the other cities, in fact, where they have a stock and which can be of use. Nagpur is going through a very critical phase right now. We have lots and lots of patients. We are overloaded with critical patients, and if we really give them plasma in time, we could actually give us a little stop, or maybe a little slow speed of the mortality which we are facing right now. So,
can I ask one question before Dr. Ambekar takes over the panel discussion?
Yes. Why not, ma'am? Sure.
And Dr. Varbe, perhaps can you throw light on? My first question is to Dr. Faisal. When we are giving so much plasma for even off-label use, just for the benefit of patient, is there any mechanism developed to get a replacement plasma from all these patients? Because such type of mechanism exists for blood donors. Do we have that, and how is the response to it?
Madam, it's a very double-edged sword here. What is happening is, in last 3 days, I have started this idea of replacement plasma to be arranged, and then they go on a wide hunt. There are thousands of messages coming across that we need a plasma, our patient is dying. And then what happens is it gets into a very whirlpool type of thing, wherein they don't even get any donor, but then we get a message from the ministry that why are you asking for replacement? You have it in your hand. So ideally there should be a replacement, but if the patient is an emergency, we issue in spite of no replacement being there. But right now we are coming and forming a policy. Yes, there should be at least one replacement per bag.
Another question is to be shared by Dr. Faisal and Dr. Varbe. All these recipients of convalescent plasma, when they recover from their COVID disease, are they eligible to become donors? And if they are eligible, Dr. Faisal, do you have a mechanism to bring them back, at least 50% of them to come back and donate you the plasma in the plasma banks?
Ma'am, I don't think I am technically competent enough to find out whether these antibodies would...
No. I said first half would be answered by Dr. Varbe. And the second is, do you have a mechanism to if at all they can donate, do you have a mechanism to get back at least 50% of them?
Varbe, sir. Right. When basically, I will just try to take you along the basics of like the disease, what happens. In case of, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, sir.
When there is a routine course and the patient recovers, what happens, like our immune system develops the antibodies, particularly the RBD antibodies. They will prevent the virus to enter the cells, and ultimately virus cannot remain alive for a long time in the body, and they are cleared out. In case of such patients, where do we give the plasma? What happens is, before they develop the antibodies, we are giving the passive immunity, ready-made antibodies to neutralize the virus, to clear the virus. So their immune system of that particular patient who is receiving the CCP therapy will not get the chance to develop their own antibodies because of the clearance of the virus from the system, from the body, So that's why we don't expect the high level of antibodies in patients who are receiving the CCP therapy, number one. But yes, they cannot be, if they develop, their immune system develops the antibodies later on, and they are tested to have the titer more than 640, then there should not be any kind of contraindication not to donate, because if they receive the RBCs, then they will develop the irregular antibodies or HL antibodies and all. But in case of plasma, patient will not develop the antibodies which will cause the kind of Trally or hemolytic disease in patient. So I don't think there should be any problem for donating the plasma who has received the plasma during their own illness. I hope I'm clear to all.
I have a point here that it's Dr. Varbe, whatever he said is okay in terms of the explanation part of it, but
this is see madam, we are all learning out of this COVID pandemic. Only the time will tell us if the proper studies are taken over. But this is what the routine logic of the transfusion medicine goes. What I'm trying to share.
I have one question for Dr. Varbe.
Yes.
Sir, my question is that we are doing a lot of sero surveillance. I'm in touch with Commissioner Office and everything. So we have done a lot of sero surveys. So we are getting a lot of patients with good antibody titers, but they have never had symptoms and they have never had any RT-PCR done. Can we collect plasma from these guys?
Absolutely, unless the whatever like variable results till now we were getting because of plasma therapy in India and across the globe to begin with, but now the things are different. The plasma were given, I would say that was the blind therapy, because without knowing the titer of particular protective antibodies into it. Out of 10, what I am testing nowadays, only 3 are showing the required titer, and almost 40 to 60 to 70% donors, they are not showing the titer of like 640. So giving the plasma out of sero surveillance, if you are just getting the antibody tested, I am sure the RBD antibodies are not kit is not available in the market till now, and these antibodies are nucleocapsid antibodies which will come fast and go fast also, and their doing that titer is going to mislead unless you do the RBD antibody titer, which is the actual rationale of giving the plasma therapy.
The idea is that you have done 27, your own staff, you have done this anti-RBD, right, sir?
Correct.
So of those 27 people who have come positive to RBD, are they fit enough to donate plasma? Because now, as per your definition, SRBD antibodies are positive, but the only problem is they were never symptomatic, they were never RT-PCR positive.
Correct. Coming to that, my people, none of them had any symptoms before, and I tested randomly to see their exposure and development of the immunity against COVID. Since they were not symptomatic and did not have the fever more than 3 days, more than 38.5 temperature, their antibody titer is less. Only 1% has shown the medium range, but majority of them have shown the lower titer. But then they are definitely immune against the COVID corona infection, but they are not eligible donor. I cannot take the plasma of those. If I just do the kind of qualitative test, they will be fit. I will take the plasma and they will be able. They would have rather donated by now. They are even few of them post antibody testing. I have done that PCR test. They are positive also, even now, which will detect the PCR test, even the dead viruses. But then unless the anti-RBD titer which is the protective antibody titer is significant, more than 640, is not going to give the required or desired benefit to the patient.
Sir, there are many questions to the panelist. We would like to take the questions.
Yeah. First question.
Sir, there is one important question.
Yes.
I think Varbe sir will answer this. For off-label use of convalescent plasma, the Health Ministry and DCGI have started that specific IgG antibodies, that is anti-spike protein RBD titer of 1 in 640 should be used. Health Minister Maharashtra has written to Health Minister, Government of India, to remove this clause. Is it ethical or legal for a blood bank in Maharashtra to issue convalescent plasma without doing this titer? is it likely to invite censure from regulatory authorities?
Till now, basically, the initial guidelines were to issue the plasma just by testing the qualitative tests like rapid or whatever the available. And if those are not available, just keep the preserve the sample for post facto testing. But then, as far as I understand, the majority of them will definitely have the lower values of the titer of protective SRBD antibodies, which is defined by the in the guidelines of the DCGI and all. Practically, since now the facilities are available in the market, they should try to go ahead, get the test done, and then only issue the plasma if they qualify the required guidelines. Otherwise, I don't think it is morally right just to issue the plasma blindly to the patient and without any benefit of it. And of course, every product has its own adverse reactions. We cannot expose our patient for that.
I think there is question which is the perfect time to give plasma, that has been answered.
Already answered.
Already there are specific indications or criteria to follow use of convalescent plasma in COVID patient. I think that is also answered. Then ICMR approves. Whether ICMR approves, I think yes, ICMR approves. What do you say, Dr. Faisal? ICMR approves?
ICMR has actually ICMR is not the approving authority for any treatment. The treatment is approved by DCGI. ICMR goes to DCGI for permission for even conducting a small trial. So DCGI has given emergency use authorization, and DCGI in its own guidelines have given that convalescent plasma can be used as investigational therapies. There are 5 to 6 investigational therapies, and we keep on reading the updates which come from Government of India, Minister of Health and Family Welfare, and in these investigational therapies, they have given convalescent plasma for off-label use as a permission to use in specific conditions, which we have decided, moderate use and all that. In severe category, they have not given permission, and hence in severe category, we are conducting a trial. So in the form of a trial, under the observation of DCGI and ICMR, we are giving it to severe patients.
One simple layman's question.
I have a question for Munje ma'am. Yeah.
Achha.
Yeah, I have a question for Munje ma'am. Yes, it's a simple question again. Like you said, actually, why we are giving this convalescent plasma to a particular age group, that is below 18 or 18 and 55, like that. Yeah, above 18, right. It's for Munje ma'am.
See, as of now, it's not approved as a drug. And whenever there is an emergency use authorization from DCGI for any drug, it's equivalent to a study being done. And we take care that people should be, if at all there are any advantages, people should be more benefited than harm. So anybody less than 18 years falls into the pediatric age group. Pregnant females are not being included for obvious reasons, as well as the elderlies are not being included.
You are asking for the donor or the patient, you are saying?
Patient.
Dr. Ambekar?
For patient also. Patients also.
Patient. These are the routine trial restrictions. These are the routine trial restrictions. Yeah.
Madam, a simple question from a layman.
Yes.
I have donated
Ma'am, I would
plasma.
like to just ask you.
I have donated plasma, and ये मेरे मन में डाउट आएगा कि अभी मुझे फिर से इन्फेक्शन नहीं हो जाएगा क्या मेरे एंटीबॉडीज निकल गए तो?
No.
This, when you are going to request people to donate, this question needs to be answered at large.
I will take up this. The studies has proved that donating plasma every 15 days is not going to deplete their antibody level up to 6 months. This is the American Microbiology Society's research paper. And that antibody, basically, whenever there is a second attack of the virus, your immune system has the memory to develop the antibodies very fast, and there is no question of any additional risk those who have donated the plasma multiple times.
Sir, I have again one question for Munje ma'am only. Like we say that there are viruses of different strains. Now we are using this plasma, and I mean, is it likely that patients have different strains of viruses, and the plasma which we have removed from one donor may not be that effective in another person or a recipient?
See, Dr. Ambekar, the strains have been said to be different, the genomes as well as the virus is undergoing mutation. That is one of the reasons why you are yet not finding a very effective vaccine, and we don't see a vaccine in the future. So that takes care part of the strain pattern. In a particular area, we believe that the strains are common, and hence the antibody developed are effective against that strain. But me not being a virologist as well as a microbiologist and immunologist, I'm very much not sure about the answers of this question. Dr. Varbe, do you have any
I mean,
answer
one
to
more
that?
question.
Yes.
One question which is linked to this one. See, you are part of Platina trial, isn't it?
Yes.
Hello. You are part of Platina trial, and we are giving off-label plasma also.
Yes.
So, are we conducting any additional observational study? I mean, this is a question by one of the participants,
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Maria Nigam. So,
It's a wonderful question, and let the message go
I am
out
repeating
to
that question, which I
everyone.
found interesting. Are we doing any additional observational study?
Yes,
What's
yes.
the effect of
We are,
plasma? Are we doing one observation?
Dr. Ambekar, shall I take on this before Dr. Faisal wants to answer it?
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
for off-label use, there are stringent criteria, even for off-label use apart from trial. That's one. And an important aspect of that off-label use is you have to report back what has happened to your patients, not only in the terms of ADR, whether they were minor or severe, outcome of the patient, whether patient has improved, dead, and how long was the patient observed, like for immediate period as well as a longer. And that feedback is mandatory to be given even in the off-label use. Am I right, Dr. Faisal? And that itself would let us have a collection of observation. Whether Dr. Faisal thinks of printing it as a offshoot of his trial or another study, I'm not aware.
Yes, ma'am, definitely, you are correct. We are definitely keeping track of what is happening, and that is why, because of some amount of confidence that we have gained from off-label patients by observation these patients, we have concluded that it does work in moderate patients, and because of only these observations, we are trying to tell you what is the right time. It is not only the government guidelines, we have had our own observations from Pune, Mumbai, Nagpur, even Jalgaon, Dhule is giving big time, Kolhapur is giving big time off-label plasma, and there are hematologists there which we are in touch with them every day evening. We find out how many off-label plasma were given, how many Platina trial are given, and then we collect this data and send it to the ministry for observation, and from that also we conclude, and hence an observational study will also come out of this apart from the Platina trial. Everybody will have to answer day 0 what has happened immediately after transfusion, day 7 of transfusion, and day 28 mortality. Of even off-label, we have to collect this data 0, 7, and 28.
Dr. Faisal, I have one more question. See, a very common condition, I mean, where you say that this person cannot donate plasma. So one of the major conditions is nulliparity. So most of the women folk are not very happy about this criteria of yours, because many female patients who have recovered and they are really eager to donate, but it's only because of this criteria of nulliparity. So is there any chance that we can remove this criteria, or
We should not.
what
We
is
should
your
not.
They
opinion?
should not. They should
We
not,
should not.
because
That is going to give the problem of trolley.
trial.
Yeah. So
They
that
should
is
not
the reason
donate
it should be
because they
avoided.
have HLA antibodies there. Inside them, they have HLA antibodies, and they give rise to very severe trali in the recipient. There are methods in the United States wherein you can remove those antibodies and then filter them out, and there are methods to find out whether they do have whether they don't have HLA antibodies. Only those will be able to donate, but we found out that this system is not very cost effective, and hence we have kept them totally out of the system.
Not only that, I think we should also emphasize that it's not only the trally, but the amount of lung damage that would occur because the lungs are already compromised in COVID. And whatever you are doing are giving with an intention of early clearance of not only the symptoms as well as the lung lesion. And if your plasma is going to do more harm than good, it's better to stay away from it.
Absolutely.
I think most of the questions are over.
Dr. Ambekar, there
yes.
are two good questions which I happen to spot. One was from our own Dr. Sanjay, who says that all the literature is from the Western world, and then why are we using plasma here? So
Please proceed, ma'am.
Let Dr. Faisal enhance on. Yes, Dr. Sanjay Devtale says that whatever evidence is there is from the Western world, and then why are we using here?
No, we do have our own literature.
So we are creating our own evidence or collecting our evidence in this trial?
Yes, yes. The Platina trial itself is supposed to create evidence from off-label and also from the trial part, and then give us guidance 2 months, 3 months down the line in the pandemic as to what can be done with plasma. In fact, we are creating our own literature with respect to monoclonal antibodies. Hafkin and NIV are isolating from these plasma. They are isolating monoclonal antibodies, and they are trying to prepare them chemically, wherein we are trying to give passive immunity like hepatitis passive antibodies, where we can, if you are exposed to something or if you are positive, you can immediately give those chemical antibodies. They have a very ambitious project in Hafkin and NIV which is going on. So it's our own literature. We are not depending on anything. We know that American literature these days are guided more by the elections rather than science itself. So we are not following any American guidelines right now.
And that comes to the another interesting question which I happened to spot, and Dr. Ambekar, probably you have missed on that. Somebody is saying that if the vaccine is not available, but the plasma is available, so can I not take plasma like a vaccine because it would give me ready-made antibodies? So what do you say, Dr. Faisal and Dr. Varghese?
No, not at all, because these antibodies in another patient, there is nobody to act upon. There is no virus to act upon. It's a passive immunity which will be effective only for a very short time. It will not be effective for a long time. Vaccine will be effective for a very long time.
Dr. Varbe, can you answer that? Somebody wants to use plasma as a vaccine.
Of course, it is not at all scientific to take the plasma on regular basis to have the antibodies and the fight against corona. It is not it has its own problems, and it is not at all indicated in asymptomatic or as a kind of pre-vaccine time protection. It is practically it is unscientific to do that. And someone was asking about IgA. Yes, our body produces IgG, IgM, and IgA antibodies also, but then IgA are mainly confined to the surfaces, and that is their titer in the convalescent plasma is not enough. And whatever testing we do, it is specifically for the IgG and IgM we are talking of, and we are testing also.
Dr. Varbe, there is a question for you from Mumbai. Dr. Gupta, who is a pulmonologist and a COVID survivor, wanted to get tested for RBD-AB titers as well as plasma donation if it's possible. Because she's in Mumbai, she says, can it be done in Mumbai? And she did not register for your the calls of getting registered.
Okay, right. I will see that. I will coordinate with my people in Mumbai, and we'll get it done. Presently, I tell you, in India, for the first time, this RBD facility is created at Lifeline for the first time from 15th of August. Second order might be is already in pipeline to this KDA hospital, Navi Mumbai. They have ordered the second kit, and this facility can be. I will definitely try to coordinate for her to get her RBD antibodies done.
Dr. Faisal, there is one question which you should answer right here. 3 people have asked for emails of the task force where they can apply for convalescent plasma for off-label in the private.
I will circulate the SOPs, the guidelines of SOPs with the email IDs to IMA, and from IMA we can in fact circulate it to all the doctors there. But I have a very big appeal here to make. as of now, we have finished all our 40 donations in last 7 days. Just when we started the SOPs, every hospital has taken at least one plasma. So before increasing the demand, we should increase the supply.
Yes.
I'm willing to give it to everybody.
Yes. In fact, I think also all those who have put in questions should send at least 2 donors of plasma, because they all come across COVID survivors every second day. The pathologist gets to see a patient, the pulmonologist, the physician, the surgeon, everybody is coming across treated cases of COVID. It would be wonderful if you can.
Next 1 month for Nagpur is not going to be good. I have been to a lot of administrative offices and the projections are not good. We are seeing around 50 deaths every day, of which a lot of people are broad dead. And it's not a good situation here. If you come to GMC and IGMC, you'll realize what is actually happening. The crowd outside on the road is not aware of this. So we should mobilize as IMA or as various organizations. We should mobilize a mass movement for plasma donation, because in some cases even remdesivir is not working. Tocilizumab, Roche themselves have said that tocilizumab may be overused drug, hence they are withdrawing partially. And the only hope we remain now is oxygen, steroids, and plasma. So we have oxygen, we have steroids. We should mobilize plasma as much as possible, right from the IMA side and from various organizations.
In fact, I remember once we were discussing with Dr. Faisal, and what he said was that you have drives for blood donation to mark various days, your birthdays, the anniversaries, and the various social as well as the religious events that happen. And they would be a wonderful platform to mobilize people to come out and donate plasma. And I think all associations who have been members in this platform as well as IMA should inspire people to come in for plasma donation. It's much easier than blood donation, and it saves your RBCs also. We take only white plasma. वो सफेद खून लेते हैं, लाल खून नहीं लेते हैं. What do you say?
Yeah. From the patient's perspective, we can always claim that, in fact, it is correct also that we only take the water part of the blood.
Yes.
And the main effective part, or the main part in which the real power of the blood is there, the RBCs, it is given back to them. And hence we are just taking the water and the blood is given back. So you can donate again and again.
I don't agree with you, Dr. Faisal. It's not water.
Water means
That's why I have coined the term of Safed Khoon. You give back RBCs and take only plasma. And even the patient and relatives can look, and they're really very happy when all the RBCs are returned,
Yes.
My sincere appeal to even all the government authorities to come up with a good pool of donors, their data, so that we can select the maximum number of donors with a good titer of protective antibody. Out of 10, only we are expecting around 3 to come to be eligible donor in a right way. Instead of blind plasma therapy, now we should target the RBD plasma therapy with right titer. This should be the kind of take-home message from this webinar.
Thank you, sir.
We are in the process of an MOU with a very big NGO which is based in Pune, and they have done wonderful work in Dharavi, in Pune, and in Malegaon. So they'll be coming to Nagpur. We are getting associated with them, and we'll have an MOU with probably with one of the labs to do this RBD titers, and the rest of the tests will be done at GMC, IGMC, and only those with positive titers will be taken. We are in the process of an MOU with this NGO.
Great.
Sir, I personally have one suggestion for all those who are working in this field. That is actually most of the patients who are not willing to donate. The reason behind that is probably they are in a state of some kind of psychological trauma as well. When they are going through this COVID, some people have a moderate type of illness, some people have a severe illness. But even if they have a milder illness, still they are not willing to donate. Like in case of blood donation, people are rather more enthusiastic. Some people are there who donate again and again. But in this particular case, it is becoming, so can we not take help of some psychiatrist or something like that? Or maybe we can motivate the patients right from the day one when they are admitted or come for treatment.
Uh, what I feel, motivating patients not from day one, but when they are getting cured, that time we should
It
motivate.
should be
We
Friday.
should all come together, and not only IMA is ultimately you all, but everyone, everywhere, we have to motivate people. We have to tell them that you can donate plasma and you can save lives. And I think we all will have to work together and take this noble cause for that.
Ma'am, before we end the program, you have
Yes.
to make one announcement. You said you have to make one
Yes,
announcement. Please go ahead and yeah.
We are coming with one motivational talk on this Sunday evening at 4:30 p.m. It's a webinar on emotional intelligence through power of self-talk. This self-talk is very important, and that we have to convince people in everything. So we are taking this. I request everyone to please attend this webinar. Mr. Manoj Ambike, he is a very good speaker, HR consultant hai. He is from Pune and he has 22 years of experience in conducting such types of workshops. He has written 40 books also on this type of motivational talks and all. So I welcome you all to this webinar. I will send the slide and link also, and I will request everyone to please ask people to attend this webinar also.
Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am.
Archana, can I add?
Yes,
Me
yes.
and Dr. Bindu Bubna of Mumbai is coming up with a new webinar, which is only participants would be doctors who have come out of COVID and their experiences and how they have come out of COVID. And let's see, it would be somewhere after 10th of September.
Yeah, we will take, definitely.
Yeah,
I will
so
need
that will be very
everyone's help
interesting. Yeah.
because we have to come and fight with this COVID pandemic.
And
Yeah.
we must really appreciate Dr. Archana's input in not only the webinar, but to be there. She's really a very strong-willed lady who is leading IMA now. Somebody else in her place would have said that I would take a break and join after a week or so. Good to see you, Archana, in the same spirit as you have always been when I have seen you.
Thank you, but I am very sorry I
She
cannot
is
donate plasma.
actually the winner.
Being
She
a
is
female, I
actually the
cannot
winner.
donate.
Being a mother, don't say that. Being a
Being a
mother, I
mother,
can. Being a mother.
a mother
I
of
must
two.
appreciate I must appreciate the IMA and all the association who for organizing such a wonderful webinar on such a wonderful topic, which is of great relevance in today's time.
Thank
So
you,
nice of
thank
you.
you, everyone.
So
Abhijit, please go for vote of thanks.
let us, yes, I'll just complete my duty by delivering a formal vote of thanks.
Actually, today our
at the outset.
secretary is also not well. He has gone for RT-PCR today.
So that
Madam
might be an
ने
addition
पहुंचाया
for new
सबको.
webinar. Yeah. Munje madam seminar webinar would be again that will be one addition. So
Prospective
to
donors
complete the
लिखते हैं इसमें.
formalities. Right. I don't know. Almost all of us probably will someday become donors. Let us hope that we don't become recipients, only donors. Yeah.
Right.
So, this webinar, the technical support was given by DG Shield. So I thank Dipen Mehta for giving a nice and smooth functioning of this overall webinar. I also thank Indian Medical Association President and Secretary, Dr. Archana Kothari ma'am and Rajesh Savarbande. Now, in association with, we have completed this webinar. Academy of Medical Sciences, I thank Dr. Nirmal Jaiswal and Dr. Sanjay Jain sir. As far as the other institutions are concerned, Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine Nagpur, Dr. Jayesh Timane and Dr. Imran, Vidarbha Chest Association, Dr. Radha Munje ma'am and Dr. Sumer Chaudhary. Then Association of Medical Faculties, Dr. Dinesh Singh and Dr. Anil Jawahirani sir, and Association of Physicians of India, Dr. Praful Kadu and Dr. Dipti Chan ma'am. So I thank everyone, all the panelists also, for giving such a nice and informative webinar. I think probably everybody was waiting for such a webinar. We can really see the huge response we have got today. 200 plus people who are on attending on Zoom, and we don't know how many people have actually attended on Facebook Live. So that number must be probably more than 1,000, I just hope. So thank you everyone, and I declare that the program is concluded. Thank you very much.